spiel is going to be on Bandai of America and Bandai of Japan, and then focusing on their Power Ranger line, since it's a good way to do a direct comparison between the two. So, quick question. Who can guess which is Bandai of America and which is Bandai of Japan?
One on the right is America.
This is American?
Yeah.
Anyone else want to make a guess?
I would say that too, just because it's bigger.
Anyone else?
Things that are bigger.
So I got 2 points votes for this being American, and I get by default the other two would have the vote would have to be the others in Japanese. Anyone else want to vote?
I will vote again and say that it's American.
You're wrong. This is Japan.
Oh, really?
This is America.
So we're cheating.
And Bandai has been in production of these types of things since 1973 at the least. They could be there longer, but I know the company is celebrating its 40th year anniversary, so I'm probably off by a couple of years.
This is Japan.
Yeah.
Japanese.
Well, Bandai itself, which has branches in Japan, America, Korea, of course all of their productions in China, of course. Everyone makes everything in China. Your phone's made in China. That's made in China. That t-shirt's probably made in China. Anyway, so they've been in operation since 1973 at least. And in 1973, Bandai teamed up with a Japanese film production company called Toei, T-O-E-I. And they created what would be the first and what is currently celebrating its 38th year anniversary of a genre called Tokusatsu, and their series in this genre is called Sentai. It later became Super Sentai when they had more stuff to it to make it super. But it started off as just Sentai, and Sentai started off with Himitsu Sentai Go Ranger, which I believe has a key for, but damn me if I'll ever find it. I mean, look at all that. That's a lot of keys.
Those are keys to life.
These are keys.
To the machine.
So what are the keys for?
Alright, that's pretty cool. So the different keys and different letters.
Yes, actually they do.
What?
Each one of these keys, assuming it's for a different team, will produce a different sound.
Sounded the same to me, but
Alright, fine. We'll go with the first team. We actually have one of the keys here. This is Owl Ranger, I think it is. The word for yellow, I can't remember at the moment. Go Ranger, the very first team.
No, that was in English.
While the current team that's being that this toy line was made for is this, Go Kaiger, which became Super Megaforce here in America. The 20th anniversary. And while we're at it, we might have to do a comparison, shall we?
And that's the Japanese then.
That's the Japanese one, and then that's the American. This is the American one. As you can see, I have got tons of these for show. If you want to come up and try one, go ahead. That's why I brought the display, for people to play and see the difference. This is the American counterpart, the same season we just heard. If I did not turn it on, I did not turn it on.
Oh, it sounds very American.
Who's that? Zordon?
No, it's Gosi, Zordon's pupil, actually.
Okay, tell us more about the company.
Alright. So in 1973, they created Ranger.
Rangers.
And Tokusatsu itself is a very practical franchise. It's all about practical effects. Models, people in costumes, low filming angles. It's all practical effects, no CGI, because CGI didn't exist in 1973. This is the same type of technology and the same type of stuff we saw with George Lucas in the original Star Wars. So, it's the scale model flying down the trench. It's all itself a model. So that's what Tokusatsu is all about. It's practical effects. And it's been declining as CGI has gotten cheaper and cheaper. But for the actual TV shows that these things are based on, we're probably still going to see Tokusatsu-based stuff for years to come, even if they do mix in some CGI. Simply because it's a lot more practical to have live-action actors carried on wires and with scale models, people in costumes, low angle filming and all that, and then do a CGI model for all of the special effects.
Because it's just cheaper.
Yeah.
Even to pay everybody, it's cheaper.
Yeah. And that actually covers a big portion of the first page of my document. So in 1978, this is where we start going super, when Marvel Comics, I think we all know who Marvel Comics is. They created Spider-Man, The Incredible Hulk, The Avengers, Captain America, Uncanny X-Men, Fantastic Four, Black Widow, so many characters. And so they caught wind of Toy's little project, the Super Sentai, and said, you know what, we'd like you to make a project for us. So they gave them the rights to do Spider-Man for Japanese TV audiences. And they said they took that franchise and they ran with it. And while technically he wore the costume of Spider-Man, and he had Spider-Man's similar powers, the Japanese Spider-Man also had a few things that were different. It was a completely different actor. It wasn't a completely different character. It wasn't Peter Parker. It was, how do I pronounce this? Takuya Yamashiro, who was actually a professional motocross driver, not a journalist.
What?
Yes.
Was he a nerd?
He was a Japanese nerd. He was a motocross guy. So back in 1978. So he was doing extreme sports. He just rode bikes a lot. He also piloted a giant robot called Lepredon, which it comes from one of the genuses of spiders. So basically, it's a giant spider robot. And apparently, it was so expensive for them to do footage of Lepredon even during the early ages of Tokusatsu, where they're basically a guy in a costume, that basically every time you busted out the giant robot, the monster would be defeated in one blow because they only had that one footage that they could film. So it's actually listed on Toy's website that Lepredon, it's a hard one to pronounce, Lepredon was their most powerful robot in history, since it was a one-hit wonder, so to speak. But that was Spider-Man in Japan, and this idea of the giant robots had never been seen in Go Ranger. There was no giant robots, it was all ground level stuff, but Spider-Man introduced this new element, and so Marvel was so impressed with this. Actually, if you go to Marvel's website today, you can actually see dubbed versions, which is subtitled versions. Subtitled ones are subs, dubs are with English language translation, so I'm not sure which one they use, but they have the Japanese Spider-Man on their website for view. They were so impressed with it, they've kept it 30 years later for free watching. And they collaborated with Toei again for another project in the next year, basically, same year. And that's where the first Super Sentai came about with Battle Fever J, which I don't think I actually have keys for, because I got these all at random, and I purchased all this other junk.
So I'm just going to give you a warning, just to let you know. I don't know if anybody's planning on coming in here at noon, but we need to be prepared to.
Right. All right. So this was Battle Fever J. Battle Fever J was essentially a precursor to the Avengers. They had an international themed team. There was Battle Japan, Battle Cossack, Battle France, Battle Kenya, and Miss America.
And Miss America.
And Miss America.
Just doesn't.
Now, of course, Marvel wanted to have Miss America lead the team, but considering this was a Japanese product intended for Japanese audiences, they obviously, the guy who was running the liaison for Toei at the time, couldn't do that to the Japanese audiences, national pride and all that. So Battle Japan took it, but Marvel still liked the project, and so after Battle Fever J was on the air, they wanted to take it here to America, do exactly what Power Rangers did, which is take the original Japanese footage, marry it with, some original American footage, and do all that fun mixing and matching stuff. But they couldn't find any market to pick it up because, 1978, who ever heard of multicolored heroes in spandex, live action, fighting giant robot monsters? It's just so unreasonable. 1978. So obviously it never happened. They tried for 10 years, but they tried for a few years, and then it's about 10 years later, they, after a while, the project died on the vine, but then an Israeli immigrant, wow, my tongue does not want to work today, named Haim Saban, found out about the same thing. There was a show called Jetman that was airing at the time in 1992, which I may or may not have a key for, but in any case, Jetman was what he was looking at the time, and he liked the idea, so he was going to do exactly what Marvel was going to do, bring it to America. Got a lot of stuff done, a lot of production work, got a lot of stuff, but it's basically just going to be But then, as everything was getting ready and they were in the talks with Bandai and all that stuff, the newest season to come about, okay, obviously probably I'll have a key for it somewhere in this mess, but let's not waste time. Anyway, so what happened is I found out about a season called Koyu Sentai Zoo Ranger, which is basically Dinosaur Sentai Zoo Ranger. Dinosaur Ranger. And Zoo Ranger itself had certain elements that really, at the time, Japan felt would really hit with an American audience. You know, it was dinosaur themed. Halfway through the season, they added the Green Ranger, which we all know about. We all know about Tommy as the Green Ranger and his summoning of the Dragon Zord.
Sure.
Who doesn't know about Tommy?
Who doesn't know
Oh,
that?
Tommy?
Tommy, the Green Ranger.
Tommy's my boy. All about Tommy.
So they switched gears and they decided to do what the originals were going to do, and they, took out the footage of the unmorphed, untransformed Rangers. So when they're out of suits and they did an American footage, they did a completely different story. Zoo Ranger was about ancient warriors revived to fight ancient evil instead of fighting areas with attitude.
Right.
And that proved to work very well, but Power Rangers was a massive hit. I think we all remember the Power Rangers craze of the early 90s.
Yeah.
But around 1996, the fad began to die down. And so around 2001, Saban was saying, this really isn't working out for me. So basically what it is, he got to talk to Disney, sold the franchise to Disney. I don't know what the original amount he bought it for was, but according to my article, which I have obviously citations for in here, he sold it for 3 times his initial buy amount. And Disney got more than just Power Rangers. They got Digimon, they got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at the time. Lots of different things that Saban all had under their umbrella at the time. And then Disney, they wanted mainly, they didn't actually want Power Rangers. They wanted Digimon. They wanted all this other stuff. It was kind of an all-one package deal. So their big idea was, we have this, we don't really want to deal with it, but there's 500 episodes we've already been produced from, about 10 years of footage. So let's all air them in syndication. However, the guys who were running the Power Ranger production group at the time, making all the filming for the American audiences, said, if we move to New Zealand, it'll reduce costs. So Disney basically said, okay, and they'll do that, and then.
So they're still making episodes?
They're still making new seasons. The first one they made was Power Rangers Ninja Storm. And, they produced, about 9 more years of footage until RPM, which was their final swan song. And in 2010, they said, okay, we're just going to go with our original syndication. We now have over 700 episodes. So they went back to the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and did a recut of it. They did in Fox HD because if something wasn't filmed in HD, you can't make a true HD. But they did their best to recreate it. They had some extra comic booky effect because, it's from the 90s, so it's going to be kind of campy anyway. And so that, and then, but since the franchise was essentially dead, what Bandai did was, okay, well, we can't rely on new toy lines to draw people in. We only have the old toy lines. If we keep releasing the old toy lines as individual units, then then there's really going to be no buy-in incentive. So they started with the Zord Builder system here, which is what this lovely fellow takes advantage of. And basically, Zord Builder is these standardized ports. So their Zord Builder line, they had the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Megazord. They had a couple in their Retro Fire line, which included SPD, which was the previous season. That I had a key for somewhere. They also did Samurai, which actually ended up being the newest season at the time in Japan. And so they had about 4 or 5 different of these Megazord lines under the Zord Builder initiative. And then, literally within a 6-month period, Saban bought back Power Rangers from Disney. I swear, if you follow Saban, it's almost like he's orchestrated this thing from the beginning, because he buys it for a swan song from Toy, sells it for 3 times the profit to Disney. Then about 9 years later, when Disney's ready to let it go for a song, he buys it back for a song, and now it's celebrating the 20th anniversary, and he's got a 3rd movie in production.
So he knows how to do it.
He knows how to do it. Now, granted, all the people that work with him said he's a penny pincher and they hate him. All the Power Ranger actors if you talk to them, they say Saban is the worst person to work for, but he knows his business, because clearly.
So can I ask you a question just to move you toward the conclusion here is, my understanding is that there's some belief that the Japanese franchise is the superior
Yeah,
franchise.
that's the
and
big
American
crux of the
is
argument amongst collectors. Even
less-
just from my little poll here, everyone thought this was the American product, was better. They look at this and they say, oh, it's crap, that's got to be the Japanese one. But no, this is the American one. And
I'm
the big,
just going on size.
well, the big point I tried to make in my article is, all the collectors say that the Japanese one is the first. It's the best one. You could turn on the sword. Oh, this one you can't turn on.
Yeah, it's like that.
It's like brings back my childhood. Half these are like the toys I can play with.
Oh, that is cooler.
So, they make these claims, but really when you get right down to it, they're targeted at two different audiences. This is Japanese 4 to 8 year olds. This is American 4 to 8 year olds. These things cost, on average, they'll cost you about $50. This will cost you $30. So, they may all be produced in China, but when you get right down to it, they're different, and, there's going to be some hit or misses. I mean, I don't even like this, but compared to this. Or then you have stuff that's only US exclusive. There is no Japanese comparison to this one. Or you can take a look at this. Which do you find more, is this still on or did I turn it off? Which do you find more engaging? This little light box here. Or the laser.
Got a clicker chicken. I want a clicker chicken. Oh my god.
They both do that. They
Wait,
both,
what did they just do?
I don't know.
Oh. Oh.
Oh, now he's dead.
they both have a special effect when you insert a key.
Put on your glasses.
Oh yeah, actually I like that one better now.
I thought you were gonna.
Watch the sphere.
It's a big advantage, though. I have more drones.
I just thought about it.
You were
It just does not hit.
Wow. Wow.
Of course, anything is going to be hit or miss. This one doesn't have a flip gimmick.
Yeah.
It's smaller. Obviously, due to gun laws here in America, they can't make it quite as accurate, so it's going to be all these bright colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can
So,
So ultimately your point.
my point is, they're not really all that bad, especially given their target audiences, their price points and everything. They're equally good products. There's going to be some lemons, but it's unavoidable. If you've been in production for 40 years across 2 coastlines for numerous toy lines, more than just this, you're going to have lemons. It's unavoidable. But that doesn't necessarily mean that by default the Japanese product is superior to the American one. And in fact, in some cases, I believe that the American product is superior. Because if someone will dim the lights,
Yeah, I thought that was cool. Yeah.
No, I still like the Japanese one. I like the trigger response. Quick.
All